Is the UFC Apex an integral piece of the UFC now that's fueling more fights and Dana White Contender Series? Or is it just Dana White's budgeting tool to recover from horrific nights at the casino? Let's get into it. So the UFC has been popping off recently. We've been to Brazil, we've been to Vancouver, Abu Dhabi, and now they decide to cram us back into the dead, crusty Apex facility for not one event, but two events in a row. We have Steve Garcia taking on David Onama, which should be a guaranteed knockout, no complaints about the matchup, and Gabriel Bonfim, Randy Brown, which is a decent welterweight matchup. Excited to see it, but the problem is they are in the Apex, and the Apex is just proven to be anti-hype. Like, it's a dead crowd. There's absolutely no buzz when we get a war or a spectacular finish. Like, when I think to myself Apex facility, I just think missed opportunity for hype and promotion, because it is just an empty, dead crowd. You have a handful of family members and media members. It really just leads to these nothing moments. Like, and you can argue Dana White Contender Series is also in the Apex, and look at how that's doing. Dana White Contender Series is actually popping off massively. But the difference there is those guys are competing for just a seat in the UFC. They are putting their bodies on the line. They are going to the depths of hell to get a victory. Two random fighters who I never knew before from opposite sides of the world coming together, finding their paths meet, their stories collide. But it's in the UFC Apex, and there's no crowd there to see it. Like, look at the Dana White Contender Series wars we've been having. These shutout performances, these like out cold, coma-inducing knockouts. Just imagine those Dana White Contender Series moments, but in front of a crowd, like how it's meant to be. The world should not be introduced to these crazy fighters in the Apex. They should be introduced to them on the world stage. We should get Contender Series on the world stage, all these debutantes on the world stage. Everybody should have their chance to perform in front of a crowd. It's just not the same. You have to have really been there and felt the energy of a sold-out arena. Because if I could go to the UFC Apex for free, I would still turn it down. Like, if Dana White says, hey, we're going to get some MMA YouTubers to go out to the Apex free of charge, I'm turning that shit down, because I've experienced what it's like to be in sold-out events, and I already know I go there for the energy, for the experience. There are just so many things wrong with the Apex, for one. So what ends up happening, you've seen it all before on these Apex cards, is typically the main and co-main are ranked, and then the entire rest of the card is all either new guys that just got here and they're looking to prove themselves. Maybe they won their debut, or they're coming off the Contender Series, brand new to the UFC, or they're losers, guys on skids. And so these are the types of fighters that will fight for their job and usually put on great scraps. They're not on like 200k to show, 200k to win, and they have a style that allows them to lay and pray or tippy-tappy, jab around, run away. These guys are on shit contracts. That bonus means a ton for them. That bonus incentive is a really real thing, and I think it's a good idea, because that will give life to lower ranked fighters and give them real incentive to go out there, put on wars, look for knockouts and submissions. And so it's so counterproductive to have that model trapped in an empty fucking sweatshop warehouse, this dusty, dead, zero aura facility. And it sucks, because even on these Apex cards, there's plenty of fighters that I care about, and matchups that I recognize are brilliantly made by the matchmakers. Like, Steve Garcia, David Onama is a guaranteed knockout. Doesn't need to be 5 rounds. That fight could be 5 minutes, and I'd still watch it. And Gabriel Bonfim, Randy Brown should be super technical. So these are fights I want in front of a crowd. All fights I want in front of a crowd. Dana White Contender Series gets a pass for now. It can exist in the Apex. Even then, I think they should get out of that place. It served its purpose. Now, in my opinion, it's just clear as day Dana White's budgeting tool for his gambling losses, because they save money running it out of there. And I've heard they want to make more facilities, which is fucking dreadful. It's not the greatest atmosphere. You need that crowd energy to really bring the fights alive. I think the athletes actually perform different. Some of them, you know, they're pretty straight edge, and they say, oh, I like the quiet, I can focus, and it's easy because it's in Vegas and it's near my gym. Like, couldn't care less. We need atmosphere. We need a coliseum for these fights. And just like when we do have a spectacular performance, it's the crowd energy that really adds to the moment. Like, Dan Hooker, Dustin Poirier is still regarded as one of the craziest scraps in the UFC. Just an incredible war, both guys pushing themselves to the brink of death. But if you had a crowd for that fight, it would be like probably in the Hall of Fame already. Like they just brought it in to, for convenience and to really keep their business alive. And I do thank the UFC for that, for finding a way to keep fights alive, getting the corners tested, getting the athletes tested, and it was a great period in time, and the UFC actually grew a lot because of that. Other sports really had to take a step back, and there was no games or anything. It was kind of a dead period in the sports world, but the UFC pushed on with the Apex and gained a large fan base because of that. Everyone cooped up at home. The UFC really grew from that, and so that was great, but that was years ago now, and they're still doing it when they have the money, they have and I'm going to get into this as well. Is the UFC Apex just like their budgeting tool now? Like, is this just what they do to like weave into their schedule to save money? Because they have the means to go all across the world and give us spectacular events like Paris, Brazil, Abu Dhabi, Canada. And don't get me wrong, we just did have a bunch of events in these locations, and now we have 2 weeks of Apex. I don't want this to be a theme. I want, even if it means less cards, it should be no more Apex. Yes, if you want to have some fight nights in Vegas, go for it, but we are done with these empty, old, crusty warehouses that they run fights out of. And at this point, the Apex is just an anti-hype machine. Like, I get it, it served its purpose. Let it be a thing of the past. The UFC has the means to actually go to these fantastic places, so fight week is actually interesting. We actually get like some decent promo because you see the fighters in the area and you have the local crowd, the local energy. Embeddeds are better. All this kind of stuff is just better when they're not in the Vegas Apex for convenience. And I've heard they want to make more Apex facilities, which is just disgusting and really sad to hear, because is it just becoming their budgeting tool at this point? I hope not. I know their main purpose now is to run Dana White Contender Series out of, which is a great show. It's really heating up into like this finish only, like tons of scraps, tons of wars. Guys really risk it all and they don't play it safe on Contender Series now. But I am sick and tired of seeing some of the best fights of the year go down in that empty, cold jail cell of a facility. But what I think they could do is just make a big fight card of Dana White Contender Series prospects and treat these Dana White Contender Series cards like a fight night, because when you just run UFC fights in the Apex, this boring, quiet atmosphere where guys, some people come in and they're action fighters, some guys really deliver, and it just feels horrible to see them trapped in the Apex and locked in there. Like, these guys thrive in front of a crowd, and their fight style is clearly meant to perform in front of a live crowd and really give the arena some energy. But here they are in the Apex. Like, this main event, Steve Garcia, David Onama, which I predict will be a guaranteed knockout from Steve Garcia, or just a guaranteed knockout either way. This doesn't need to be taking place in a cold sweatshop warehouse like the Apex. No buzz, no aura. We need big fights in big arenas with sold-out local crowds. We're done with this Apex era. If you want to use it for the Contender Series, that's fine. I think even then, I still really think the UFC should try to expand and grow the Contender Series into their own, fight nights. Get them in front of a live crowd. That's what it's meant to be. You see any other sport out there taking place in a cold, empty sweatshop or, warehouse. It's really interesting. It has me convinced that it is just their budgeting tool, Dana's way of, recollecting lost funds from gambling. It's sad, because the truth is they do save money doing it, because they don't have to go sell out an arena and do all this travel stuff. So I get it, but fighting needs to be in front of a sold-out arena. That is when it's operating at its best. That is how it competes with the world of other sports. And look, this isn't me asking for the UFC to go back to the damn sphere, okay? I'm asking them to return to a previous era that was better than the one we have now. But it's pretty sad that the most we get now is 3 months of freedom and then back to the UFC Apex to sit through a collection of matchups who are either Guys that are looking to prove themselves in big action spots because they just got their job, they're not on a good contract, and they're hunting for that bonus. Or guys on a skid that are going to go to the depths of hell to save their job. And misplaced action fighters by the matchmakers who know these guys shine in front of a sold-out crowd, but here they are anyway. Steve Garcia, David Onama, KO Machines. They are your main event for this weekend, guys. So, am I unhappy with their placement on this card? Yes, of course, but that is more of an Apex issue than the fighters themselves. Yeah, it's pretty crazy that we're still here in the Apex running fights. I don't think it's really been necessary for years now, but the UFC is so intent on still running it because they learned how convenient it really is to save money. It lets them just house more fighters. That, I guess, could be considered a benefit. The sport is very, very active now. I feel like we get more fights than we ever have. They keep on signing guys from Contender Series. Maybe that's properly balanced out by the amount they cut people now. I feel like in this timeline of the UFC, they cut people more than anything. You see guys get cut off wins nowadays. We have so many fighters who deserve better. All fighters deserve to perform in front of a live crowd more than just a handful of drunk family members and media members who to just hold a mic and spout garbage after just witnessing greatness in the cage. Oh well, I guess there are some benefits to it on the side of the company, or else they wouldn't be doing it, obviously. I know Dana White wants to upgrade it and make more Apexes. Fuck off with that. From a fan perspective, they are pointless. From a fighter perspective, I believe they are pointless. So many great performances and victories just completely lost to time because they took place in the Apex and the world hardly ever saw it. Sit through an Apex card where it's dead silent, like maybe a few family members like woo in the crowd. It's not the same. When I watch an Apex card, I feel like the sport's regressing. I feel like it served its purpose entirely. For now, just use it for Dana White Contender Series, and even then, their next step should be to make Dana White Contender Series into its own official fight night and start putting every fight night, every event in a sold-out arena because they have the means to do it. The sport is a lot bigger than, weaving in Apex cards couple times every month or like 2 months. We're done with that completely. So that's the video, guys. Let's debate it in the comments. As always, I'll see you next time. I'm getting working on the Tom Aspinall video. So thanks, guys. I'll see you later.